Welcome to this comprehensive guide to the OSec penetration testing process. In this video, we'll take a deep dive into each phase of our methodology. Penetration testing is a complex, ever-evolving activity, and every target is different in some way. Penetration tests always have time constraints. What those time constraints are depends on what needs to be tested, the project's objectives, and the resources a client wants to commit to a test. Regardless of the technology or time constraints, we believe the rigorous application of our process ensures a penetration test which meets our client's objectives. Join us as we explore the steps we take to ensure a client's technology is as secure as they need it to be in order to achieve their goals. We begin with the planning and kickoff phase. Here, we ensure that the test aligns with the client's goals and expectations and determine the specific test parameters. We need to define the scope, set objectives, and confirm the approach to be taken during the test. To understand our client's objectives, we discuss their goals and identify critical assets, business processes, systems, and data. Without this discussion, the usefulness of the test will be minimal. How can a penetration test support business objectives? Releasing an insecure product can lead to reputational damage, which will impact sales. On the other hand, not meeting compliance objectives can result in fines, which will affect the bottom line. The list of potential impacts is long, and the specifics depend on the organization. Our job is to help identify them and structure a test accordingly. Next, we define the scope. What will be tested? The scope can range from one individual system or application to vast networks, large cloud-hosted infrastructures, complex applications, and industrial systems deployed at multiple sites. The testing approach to be taken will be decided upon: black box, gray box, or white box. This will depend on the objectives. However, we typically suggest avoiding black box testing unless a client really wants to know what an attacker can find out about them. We believe with enough time, information on your organization will be found out, so don't pay for that and instead invest your resources into knowing where your weaknesses are. Depending on the test approach, target information may be provided, along with credentials for specific systems. The rules of engagement will be confirmed. For example, denial of service attacks are usually out of scope, as is brute force testing. There will also be a discussion around any testing blackout windows. Some clients require testing be done out of hours, some at weekends, some whenever. We advise clients to leave all their security controls active and in place. We've heard of tests requiring these to be turned off, but in our experience, this creates noise, wastes time, and is not an accurate assessment of a client's reality. With planning complete and a kickoff agreed upon, testing can begin. Next, the reconnaissance phase begins, where we gather as much information as possible about the target to identify potential vulnerabilities. What is conducted here depends on what was decided upon during the planning phase. A full network penetration test will look different than the test of a mobile app, but let's discuss what might happen here. We may start with passive reconnaissance. This involves collecting publicly available information from various sources and reviewing any targets in the same way any user could. For example, browsing the login page for an application and viewing the source. We gather data from websites, social media, and public records. This helps us understand the target's attack surface. Open source intelligence can provide a treasure trove of information. Domain names, IP addresses, cloud resources, and network ranges that are associated with the target will be identified. Active reconnaissance will also be conducted. How active depends on the rules of engagement. Some clients like us to test their monitoring solutions, so we are required to be as stealthy as possible. We'll determine active systems, open ports, and services on the target. Everything is about building up a picture of the attack surface, whether it's on-prem systems, in the cloud, or a hybrid environment. We may also employ social engineering techniques during this phase. There is often a wealth of information on social media, so viewing posts by employees, as well as communicating with them, if allowed, can lead to useful information being obtained. Other social engineering techniques may be employed, again, depending on the type of test and target. The results of the recon are analyzed and activities for the next step planned. While the reconnaissance phase is usually quite short due to time constraints, unlike in an actual attack, where it may be extremely long, it is still a vital element of any test and may be repeated throughout the project. If, for example, a system is breached, recon will then be undertaken on the compromised target. Next, it's the enumeration phase, where we extract detailed information about the target to identify potential vulnerabilities and attack vectors. There are thousands of potential vulnerabilities that could be found in an environment. To test for a large number of well-known ones, automated scanning tools will be run during this phase. These tools are good at finding the low-hanging fruit and identifying possible leads for further investigation. Automated tools are available for various target types. As long as a test does not require stealth, they may be used here. We'll also undertake manual analysis of the target's technical attributes to look for possible vulnerabilities that are lesser known and automated tooling is unable to test for. In our experience, these issues often have the potential to be the biggest concern, and this is why expert penetration testing is required. For example, complex pop chains can only be uncovered through manual investigation, and when found, they can have devastating impacts. We may review source code, query API endpoints queried, probe authentication mechanisms, analyze network traffic, review the design for door locks, since we also perform physical penetration tests, review shift patterns, and much more. The objective of this phase is to determine where to focus our exploitation efforts. On to exploitation. This is where we actively try to use vulnerabilities to gain access to systems or whatever other objectives have been set for us. Exploits are to vulnerabilities like keys to locks. If you don't have the right key, you can't unlock the door. By the same token, successful exploitation of vulnerabilities requires having the correct exploit. Many exploits are public, often available in tools. Others are lesser well-known, being obtained through research or other sources. Some exploits are as simple as wearing the right baseball hat to breach a facility. We wrote a blog article on that one. Our assessment test is supported by our vulnerability research team, who are tasked with developing exploits, and our intel team, who uncover exploits during their activities. Attempts will be made to exploit vulnerabilities. An effective penetration test will provide accurate information on exploitable vulnerabilities. This is a key difference between running a vulnerability scan and a penetration test. Scans do not validate what is found, leading to huge amounts of noise, which the receiving organization has to spend time investigating. These false positives send security teams on wild goose chases and ultimately impact an organization's trust in security testing. Therefore, our team will confirm the existence of real vulnerabilities and undertake exploitation to specific levels, again, based on requirements. Sometimes, a successful exploit will provide access to a system, allowing our testers to undertake further reconnaissance and enumeration to develop a stronger foothold in an environment, and move between systems, also known as lateral movement. In other instances, an exploit may reveal the contents of a database or prompt an API to leak data, an IoT device to malfunction, or AI to reveal its training data, or worse. In some cases, one of our objectives will be to obtain persistence as part of a penetration test. This may start to sound more like a red team, depending on who you ask, but semantics are not our concern, only assisting our clients in meeting their objectives. We will deploy implants, providing the ability for us to connect to the system over a covert channel. These implants evade detection systems. The work we have done has often required us to bypass monitoring and detective controls. The process of recon, enumeration, and exploitation may continue if required. Either the objectives will be achieved within the time frame, or avenues of investigation will be exhausted. Finally, we come to the reporting phase and subsequent follow-up. Our goal is to provide our client with all the information they need to understand what we did, how we did it, what it means to them, and how they fix it. Once it's fixed, we also want to ensure it really is no longer a problem, so we provide free remediation testing. First, we will review our findings with the client, discuss our preliminary severity ratings, and projected impacts. The client also has the opportunity to provide feedback and ask questions. Reports have two primary sections, an executive summary section and the technical detail section. The executive summary contains a high-level overview of the work, along with key insights and analysis. This section provides the reader with a clear, technical jargon-free analysis of the project. The technical report contains full details on all the findings. Walkthroughs are provided of vulnerability exploitation, which will include supporting evidence. If required, video can also be provided of exploitation occurring. Remediation recommendations are also provided, which consider the client's environment and any operational impacts. Additional deliverables are also sometimes required, such as attestation reports, which can be provided to external parties. Throughout the report, one of our objectives is to place the information in the client's context. Generic assessments create unnecessary noise and more work for the client. Instead, what is discovered, where it's discovered, and what its impact will be needs to be taken into account. For example, while a cross-site scripting vulnerability is by industry default considered high risk, this is often not the case. If it's discovered on a seldom-used website, is there really a large population of users to target? Is the functionality provided by the website critical? Can the system, if breached, be used to gain further access? If not, we may adjust our assessment. We also consider the systemic risks that our findings indicate. These are the underlying causes of the problems, and addressing them is beneficial to the long-term security of any organization. Let's consider a number of vulnerabilities being identified which are due to security patches not being applied. This may well indicate that vulnerability management within the organization is not working effectively and needs to be addressed. Our reports close with a conclusion which sums up the findings, as well as highlighting anything else we feel the client needs to consider. The final report will be reviewed with the client and any remaining questions answered. Clients will inform us once remediation is completed, and we will retest. This is done free of charge, usually for a period of up to 6 months following the final report deliverable. We hope this video has given you a good picture of what we do. Specific circumstances sometimes change elements of the test. As in all our work, our goal is to provide our clients with what they need, so we accommodate these changes as necessary. While the process remains the same throughout our tests, the technical aspects continue to evolve. Our researchers and others continue to find new techniques and develop new tools. At the same time, our relentless focus on our clients means we also continuously review how we do our work and ensure every penetration test gives clients the highest return on their investment. Thanks for watching.